Welcome back to the show. Today it's pretty wild. It really is rare that we get a story of this scale, but here it goes. In 2021, 1 year after the Xbox Series consoles stumbled their way into the world, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella was allegedly considering two options for Xbox. Option A, stop, to basically wind it down and get Microsoft out of the games market. Option B was to double down. Now, Microsoft do deny this report, right? But even though they do deny it, it does seem to fit what we all saw, because at that stage, Microsoft was floundering. The series consoles were behind their big mascot brand in the form of John Halo had a rough launch, and we all know how it would go on to go, and the vibes were turning on them. So if you were in Satya Nadella's shoes, what would you do? Get out or double down? And certainly what appears to have happened is a doubling down. Almost $100 billion of acquisitions between Activision Blizzard King and, of course, Bethesda ZeniMax. That is so much money. And I get why. It's a competitive market. Go hard or go home. And as much as, say, Starfield was not a pure win and Redfall was quite the disaster, picking up Activision Blizzard sure did help. In fact, take a look here. This is their recent financials, and you actually see that every element of growth in Xbox's financials was driven by Activision Blizzard, which sure does say something about the underlying Xbox business kind of struggling. Okay, it's rather grim, and today we have got two things. Thing number one, Xbox's reported goal is 100 million Game Pass subscribers by 2030. That would be triple the number of Game Pass subscribers as of the Activision Blizzard King acquisition. And two, and this is a ginormous one, analysts are now suggesting the cost of Game Pass is really quite gargantuan, to the tune of 80% of sales being cannibalized, which is absolutely insane. So you want to sit down for this one, preferably on today's sponsor. We're FlexiSpot, and I partnered with them because I seriously think they can actually help you. I am stunned with how good their C7 chair is and how well priced it is, right? Now, I'm somebody who is right now like weaning off medication from years of back injury. I actually take this stuff seriously, and the C7 is replacing my IKEA Marcus at home, and we actually just replaced Matt's chair with one of these in the office as well. The upgrade is insane. Now, this chair has got its office and relax modes. Office first, right? We have a 93-degree lock, latex padded seat, which is incredible for your support, but also it's nice and airy. It doesn't get super sweaty, which is very, very good. And it has incredible adaptive lumbar support, which is so important for your lower back. It's a really wide seat as well. So that basically means you've got room to sit as is comfortable for you and to change your position. And it also solves a really massive chair problem, and that is depth. We're all different shapes. We're all different ratios of legs and torsos. And that actually means you've got to be able to change your seat depth so it actually fits you, and you can do that. And then, of course, we've got the relax mode. Now, it's got 4 lockable reclining levels up to 128 degrees, pull-out footrest, so you can lounge. You can be cross-legged on it because the chair is actually large, whatever pleases you. And what's important there is you've got the flexibility to move. You see, it's often less about having the perfect posture, and it's more about changing your posture. There's a phrase, the best position is your next position. That's true. This chair really supports that. It's even got 3D armrests, so you can actually have it be perfect. Basically, those problems that come from a chair being designed for a generic human don't exist here. And here's the real killer feature. 30-day return period that is literally designed so you have got a risk-free trial. That means you can pick it up, see if it actually works for you, and it's got a 10-year warranty with direct replacement parts, which is actually them standing behind their product. I think these are class. I actually use one. And even better, my link and code will get you $30 off, so go check them out now. With that 100 million goal, Game Pass is absolutely plan A for them, and after the price hikes, it's $14.99 for day one games and consoles, $11.99 for the same in PC, or $19.99 for both, plus cloud streaming. So for their console base, that is $179.88 a year for access to a games library that, as an example, through 2024, had 137 games, which is just over $4,600 in value, technically, added, and of those, 37 were day one. Some of them were fairly big hits, like your Pal Worlds, your Frostpunk 2s, your Manor Lords, like from the indies, and then you got the top tier ones and 6 first parties, most notably, I think, are Blop 6 and Indiana Jones. So, if you are happy to not own your video games and to just have access to a library, yeah, you can say it's a pretty banging deal, almost as if a massive tech company is dumping truckloads of money into some sort of big strategic initiative. Yeah, That's definitely what's happening. And for developers, Game Pass is something that has changed. So one, Game Pass deals are much harder to come by these days, even though, like, yes, it is indies, third parties, etc., that still bulk the pass out. And the less good news here is not just being said by bitter indies who didn't get deals, it's actually being said by teams who have previously championed Game Pass. We've heard from so many different sources that it's been pretty rough over there. When deals do happen, they're also smaller these days. But for the longest time, we had all heard the line, Game Pass deals increase your sales. And yeah, there's cases where that could happen, but it's also suspiciously close to, you'll get so much exposure. We'll pay you with that exposure. And now we've got an analyst pointing out just how bad that can actually be. Here's Christopher Dring. Until recently, he was of GameIndustry.biz, and he has been doing trade journalism for 17 years. He is a very well-connected guy, and in a Q&A, he dropped this. Anecdotally, games that are in Game Pass can expect to lose around 80% of its expected premium sales on Xbox. It's less if it's a big mainstream release, but generally, ... look at how low Hellblade 2 charted, or where Indiana Jones came, or even Starfield. Game Pass clearly hurt sales of those titles on Xbox. So yes, you're in a strange situation where Game Pass can cannibalize loads of sales, meaning that these Xbox titles don't actually appear as high up as you could expect on sales charts. Now, 80% is a hell of a lot, and the rub here is that Microsoft cannot sell games on their own platform, which does make sense. I mean, why buy a new game when you can just access that game for far less money, while for that same amount of money also getting access to loads of other games? In fact, Microsoft themselves even told regulators, right, during the ABK acquisition, that they fully expect to see a decline in real sales for at least a year. Which of course makes perfect sense, especially a single-player narrative game like Indiana Jones or Hellblade 2. Why would you pay full price for something that you'll play once or twice through, right? You're just not going to do that. It doesn't make sense. Microsoft are knowingly sacrificing vast quantities of upfront money, but they're doing it for a reason. They know that their own walled garden is pathetic, so they've changed tact. It's now less about them having a walled garden and more them being an invasive species and making their way into other people's walled gardens. Rather shockingly, my phone is an Xbox, my iPad an Xbox, you are an Xbox. Sadly, my fridge is not an Xbox, but basically, this is actually an Xbox, is the crux of their latest marketing campaign for everything. The idea basically is that every device you have, anything with a screen, will of course work with Game Pass Ultimate's cloud streaming. So if you buy a new TV, there's a pretty damn high chance that you'll have Xbox pre-installed on it. And that's, as an example, why Microsoft ultimately abandoned their streaming stick, a bit like a Fire Stick or a Chromecast. They just realized there wasn't actually any point in them making the hardware because it's just streaming. The big picture idea, though, is that Xbox is a thing that is everywhere, that you can access anywhere, and if you want to access it the best way, you can buy their console and access it that way. Now, obviously, this would all be shit if your saves were fragmented, but the updated Play Anywhere system is going to sort that out, which basically just means everything is an Xbox, nothing is an Xbox, but that's actually their plan. Because those people arguing that Microsoft are abandoning their console, in a way, are not wrong. Take the Switch 2 from Nintendo. Right now, it's actually heavily rumored that Xbox is going to be one of the most prolific publishers on that thing, which, again, does make sense. And take this statement, right? The era of Xbox having permanent console exclusives is over. That is a quote from Jez Corden, who is somebody who writes for Windows Central. He has got inside sources. So, is Xbox abandoning their console? I think the answer is yes. It is certainly not Plan A anymore, but there's a reason why they're abandoning it. Because we all abandoned it first, and they still need to grow. But actually, for gaming, growth is elusive. And if you're an enthusiast like me, this will catch you by surprise. Take a look at this chart. It's fascinating, and it's from Epelion CEO Matthew Ball. Now, this is a recent report, but it focuses on older data and basically how the industry changed up to this generation. But it really does matter. So take a look at this line. It says high performance. And that basically is, your Xboxes, your PlayStations, not your handhelds. And between generations, right? It's flat. The thing that's growing console sales basically is the Nintendo Switch. So essentially, as we moved from PS3 to PS4, Xbox 360 to Xbox One, we didn't see high-performance consoles as a sector grow in a massive way, which honestly a lot of people would find quite surprising. As for this console generation, it's actually a little bit more grim. So as of 6 months ago, the PS5 had sold 61.8 million units. The PS4 had sold ever so slightly fewer units in the same amount of time, but the lifetime sales of the PS4 are 117 million. So with those numbers, you can immediately tell that a lot of people did not just by default hop onto the new console generation from Sony. But where the big picture becomes clear is taking a look at Xbox. This is from Wall Street Journal's reporting, and yeah, 28.3 million units. That is under half what Sony have done in this generation. And of course, if Sony are ever so slightly defeating their past result, but Xbox are really doing quite terribly, what that basically means is the overall sector hasn't really grown for high-performance consoles. So let's put this together. The Nintendo Switch is pretty damn massive, 146 million sales, and PC is on the up. As an example, PC spending is estimated to be 20% higher than in 2021, and we keep on seeing Steam hit like new heights in terms of concurrency and all of those stats. So if you're wondering what the deal here is and why I just assaulted you with loads of facts and numbers and stuff, basically here's why. They can see the writing on the wall. We can all see the writing on the wall. It's probably why we didn't all go and buy Series X's. And because the Series install base is so low, they're obviously not doing a competitor to the PS5 Pro. They have officially said they're not going to do that. But in a way, they see the PS5 Pro as a faster horse. They see themselves as Henry Ford. So even for them, resources are limited. Why would they waste those resources on the Pro version of an already defeated console when they can start investing on winning tomorrow in a new market? A market informed by the fact that high-performance console growth has been flat, maybe even declining, and especially when industry-wide total engagement across PC and consoles was stagnant in 2023, but was down 10% in 2024. One thing first though, because I gotta grab us out of this strategic quagmire to just have a real talk. So I'm gonna bet that there's a rumbling dissatisfaction that's probably been bubbling around your head throughout this video. It's been bubbling around my head throughout this video. And that's because all of this strategic talk does make sense. You look at Microsoft, you see them completely lose the consoles and then decide, right, we'll put our resources into tomorrow and we won't bother with the thing right now, blah, blah, blah. There's that to back it all up. But also, hold the fuck on a second. Games are a hobby. Games are an art form, a creative art form, which is why we enjoy playing them and getting the new experiences that we can get from them. So before I bring this home and try to lay out, what Microsoft is thinking, I do want to plant a bit of a flag here. As an example, right now, in the world of streaming, you can see the business models of your Amazon Primes and your Netflixes really just now being at the expense of the customer experience. And this happens in so many businesses. At least in most cases, it seems like it's all this grand strategy that's flopping out of the C-suites, perhaps the suites a floor or two lower, and the legions of product managers who are there to hit their KPIs and their OKRs and to ship their update in the right quarter. But I think that screws developers. It certainly screws us as customers. We've just seen, in many ways in games, a lot of things are getting worse, and it sucks. So all of this talking about big strategy is fun, but it's often, I think, a sort of self-felating fun that's a distraction from the actual thing of value, which in some sort of ideal world would be, are the games good? Like what Sven from Larian said at the Game Awards. We're like, well, no, we're Larian. This is the type of game we make. We don't follow the trends. We just want to be really good at making the type of game that we're really good at making. And funnily enough, people absolutely goddamn love that. So I think you get the point. It's all this mid-wit strategic stuff that leads to, your Star Wars being mishandled or Netflix being so analytical with how they cancel or greenlight their shows that at this stage, nobody bloody trusts them. So, with that in mind, that there's probably going to be a lot of damage around this, let's bring Xbox's plan together. It's a plan that by now is actually quite clear. Xbox did have plans for a mid-gen upgrade to fight the PS5 Pro, but again, per Jez Corden, they abandoned those plans and are going straight to the next generation. Now, Xbox have themselves ruled out exiting the gaming hardware space, right? Which basically means this. By the year 2030, they want to ship a new console, and they want to hit 100 million Game Pass subscribers. Now, there are rumors suggesting that they will be publishing heavily in the Switch too, and as Jez said, the era of Xbox having permanent console exclusives is over. And we've already seen that with Hi-Fi Rush, Sea of Thieves, and now even their big guns like Indiana Jones, which is officially targeting a spring launch on the PS5, which is when I'm going to buy it, and that's the only way that Microsoft would ever get my money for it, which is what they want. They'd probably like that money. Microsoft are not betting on console growth, which does actually make sense. High-performance console growth has actually declined. So their plan instead is to not grow directly against Sony, but to grow around Sony by publishing their games on Sony's platform, on Nintendo's platform, and then every screen on Earth through streaming. That gets them revenue. It grows their brands. More and more people will be playing an Xbox Game Studios thing, such that when the new console generation does actually happen, people will be more used to them, and they will be aware that Game Pass is there, and that all those games they buy for $50, $60, $70, maybe $80 are actually just, $20 a month over there. And that, I believe, is the thin end of the wedge that they want to use against Sony. Because when you look at Sony's business model, one thing's pretty damn clear. Them putting a big new, Naughty Dog game or something from Insomniac on PS Plus on launch day is basically unthinkable. And also remember that by the time that happens, PS5 users will be used to buying Doom, Elder Scrolls 6, Indiana Jones, stuff from all of those studios they have acquired, where we haven't really seen the bulk of the in-production games yet. That is their big, long plan. And to best serve that plan, rather than grow their hardware share now, they want to grow their software share. They then want to convert that into subscription and hardware sales in the future. But of course, that's just the big strategy, and it's Microsoft. Do you know the history of Microsoft? They're somewhat a company renowned for just unforced errors absolutely all of the time. I'm sure you enjoyed the new Microsoft Word and Windows 10 news. That was also lovely. So yeah, this is a Microsoft that will, also as time goes on, only care less and less about gaming because, being real, they're just going to care more about spinning up their nuclear reactors for their AI data centers. We live in interesting times. If you think we've missed an angle in this analysis, let me know down below. And we really do live in interesting times because of what I talked about over in this video.